Imagine a life where you are the master of your own peace, where nothing and nobody has the power to upset you. Picture a world where criticism, insults, and problems no longer rob you of your calm, where you move through your days with an unshakable sense of serenity. It sounds impossible, doesn't it? In a world that often seems designed to provoke, to agitate, to test our emotional limits at every turn, this kind of tranquility might appear like a distant dream. We are constantly bombarded with stimuli, from the relentless news cycle to the pressures of work, the complexities of relationships, and the ever-present hum of social media. It's a world that thrives on reaction, on instant responses, on emotional outbursts. Yet, the Stoics, those ancient philosophers of Greece and Rome, achieved this state of being. While the world around them reacted with anger, frustration, and a whole spectrum of negative emotions, they remained serene. It wasn't because they felt no emotions. They were, after all, human beings with the full capacity for joy, sorrow, love, and yes, even anger. But they had learned to control them, to master them, to use them as tools rather than be enslaved by them. They understood a profound truth, that true freedom lies not in the absence of challenges, but in our ability to choose our response to those challenges. And now, I'm going to reveal to you how you can do the same. If you apply these teachings, if you truly internalize these Stoic principles, you will never again get angry or annoyed with anyone. Not because the world will change. The world will continue to be as it is, with its inherent imperfections, its challenges, and its provocations, but because you will have changed. You will have undergone a transformation, a shift in perspective so profound that the things that once triggered you will no longer hold the same power over you. You will have cultivated an inner fortress, a bastion of tranquility that cannot be breached by external forces. You will have become, in essence, the master of your own mind. But before we dive into these transformative lessons, I want to ask you something. If you're finding this introduction intriguing, if you're resonating with the idea of living a more peaceful, more controlled life, please take a moment to like this video. It helps others find this valuable information. And if you want to stay updated on future content that can help you on your journey of self-improvement, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. We're building a community here, a community of individuals committed to personal growth and inner peace. And if you know someone who could benefit from these Stoic teachings, someone who struggles with anger or stress or emotional reactivity, please share this video with them. You might just make a difference in their lives. Now, before we truly begin, I want you to go to the comments section right now. And I want you to write these words. Today, my best version begins. I am a Stoic. With this declaration, with this simple act of writing it down, you commit to taking control of your mind, to living with discipline, to embracing the Stoic path. You are making a promise to yourself, a promise to strive for virtue, to cultivate wisdom, and to live in accordance with nature. Write it down now, don't delay. Let's make this commitment together. Let's get started. Issue number 1. The destructive nature of anger. Anger is, without a doubt, one of the most destructive emotions a human being can experience. It's a fire that consumes not only those around us, but also corrodes us from within. It weakens our minds, clouds our judgment, and drags us toward decisions we will sooner or later regret. It's a potent force, capable of unleashing chaos and destruction in its wake. The Stoics considered anger one of the greatest threats to virtue, the very foundation of a good and fulfilling life. They understood that when anger takes control, when it seizes the reins of our reason, we cease to be rational beings. We become slaves to our impulses, driven by a primal urge to lash out, to retaliate, to inflict pain. In that moment, we lose sight of our values, we abandon our principles, and we act in ways that are often contrary to our true selves. Anger is not a sign of strength, as many might believe. It is, in fact, a sign of weakness, a clear and undeniable proof that we have lost control of ourselves, that we have allowed external circumstances to dictate our internal state. It's a surrender, a capitulation to the forces that seek to disrupt our peace. Anger is like an uncontrollable fire. It starts with a spark, perhaps a misinterpreted word, an action we consider unfair or unjust, or an unexpected obstacle that thwarts our plans. It could be something as seemingly insignificant as a traffic jam, a delayed flight, or a rude comment from a stranger. But if we give it oxygen, if we fuel it with ruminating thoughts, if we allow it to fester in our minds, it quickly grows into a blaze, a raging inferno that devastates our mental clarity, our relationships, and our overall well-being. It can consume our thoughts, dominate our conversations, and poison our interactions with others. It can lead to impulsive actions, regrettable words, and lasting damage. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, warned that the best way to fight anger is to prevent it from arising in the first place. He understood that anger is a powerful force, and once it has taken hold, it can be incredibly difficult to extinguish. Therefore, the key is to be vigilant, to be aware of its first signs, to recognize the subtle shift in our thoughts and feelings that signals its approach. If we learn to recognize these first signs, if we develop the ability to observe our own emotions with detachment and clarity, we can extinguish it before it consumes us completely. We can intervene. We can choose a different path. We can choose to respond with reason rather than react with rage. The consequences of anger are devastating, not only for those on the receiving end, but also for the one who harbors it. It causes unnecessary conflict, creating rifts in relationships, damaging trust, and leaving lasting scars. But it also has profound effects on our health. Science confirms what the Stoics already knew through observation and introspection. Anger raises blood pressure, weakens the immune system, and can trigger cardiovascular problems. It's not just a momentary emotion, it's a poison that, if allowed to grow, destroys both body and mind. It can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, and even depression. It can impair our cognitive function, making it difficult to think clearly and make sound judgments. It can shorten our lives, robbing us of precious time and opportunities. Epictetus, the former slave turned Stoic teacher, taught that it is not external circumstances that disturb us, but our interpretation of them. He emphasized the importance of our perceptions, our beliefs, and our judgments in shaping our emotional responses. If someone insults us, it is not the insult itself that harms us, but the importance we give to it, the meaning we attach to it. If we choose to dismiss it, to see it as irrelevant, or to understand that it says more about the insulter than the insulted, it loses its power to wound us. Learning to control our perception, to challenge our assumptions, to question our knee-jerk reactions, is the first and most crucial step to mastering anger. When we let ourselves be carried away by anger, our actions become irrational. In the heat of the moment, it seems justifiable to shout, insult, or even hit something. We feel a surge of energy, a sense of righteousness, a belief that we are justified in our anger. But when the storm passes, when the adrenaline subsides, and when reason returns, we realize that we have only made the situation worse. We have damaged relationships, we have said things we didn't mean, and we have acted in ways that we later regret. An outburst of anger can destroy relationships that took years to build. A single, impulsive comment, fueled by rage, can leave wounds that never fully heal. It can create resentment, bitterness, and a lasting sense of hurt. Seneca, the Roman statesman and philosopher, said that anger is like a momentary delirium, a state in which we cease to be in control of our words and actions. It's a temporary madness, a loss of reason that can have devastating consequences. If we observe ourselves carefully, if we take the time to reflect on our past experiences, we will see that most of our angry reactions are disproportionate and devoid of logic. They are often triggered by trivial matters, by misunderstandings, or by our own distorted perceptions. Imagine an argument with a loved one. In the heat of the moment, harsh words seem necessary, justified, even cathartic. But once everything calms down, once the intensity of the emotion has dissipated, we realize we could have handled the situation more wisely. We could have listened more attentively. We could have spoken more calmly. We could have sought a solution rather than escalating the conflict. Most problems can be solved with dialogue and patience, with understanding and compromise. But anger blinds our ability to reason. It clouds our judgment, and it prevents us from seeing the situation clearly. Instead of looking for solutions, we seek revenge. We seek to inflict pain, and in doing so, we only feed a cycle of resentment and pain. We perpetuate the very thing we claim to be fighting against. The Stoics teach us that the best way to combat anger is through self-discipline and reflection. They emphasize the importance of developing inner strength, of cultivating reason, and of practicing self-control. Marcus Aurelius recommended remembering that life is short and that most of the problems that enrage us are insignificant in the grand scheme of things. He encouraged us to take a broader perspective, to see our challenges in the context of the vastness of time and space. He reminded us that anger is often a reaction to trivial matters and that it's not worth sacrificing our peace of mind for things that will soon be forgotten. Seneca suggested practicing patience and indifference in the face of provocation. He advocated for developing a sense of equanimity, a state of mind that is not easily disturbed by external events. True strength, he argued, does not lie in responding with violence, either physical or verbal, but in remaining calm, in maintaining composure, when everything around us seems to be trying to make us lose control. Anger is an internal enemy, a beast that, if not tamed, can consume us entirely. It can rob us of our happiness, it can damage our relationships, and it can prevent us from living a virtuous life. But the good news is that we can train ourselves not to let it drag us down. We can cultivate the inner strength, the self-discipline, and the wisdom to master this destructive emotion. The next time you feel anger rising, stop. Take a deep breath. Observe the sensation without judgment. Ask yourself if it's really worth it. Is this anger serving you? Is it helping you achieve your goals? Is it contributing to your well-being? Remember that no external force has power over you unless you give it to them. You are the master of your own mind. You have the power to choose your response. Peace is not found in the absence of provocations. It's not about living in a bubble free from challenges. It's found in the ability to face them with equanimity and control, with reason and wisdom, with a stoic heart. Number 2, all negative emotions arise from unfulfilled expectations. Negative emotions are not born of what happens, but of what we expected to happen and did not. This is a profound truth, a fundamental principle that underlies much of the suffering we experience in life. It's not the events themselves that cause us pain, but the gap between our expectations and reality. Frustration, anger, sadness, resentment, disappointment, anxiety. All these feelings share a common root: the difference between reality and our expectations. We believe the world should behave in a certain way, that people should act in a certain way, that life should unfold in a certain way. We create these mental models, these idealized versions of how things should be. And when reality deviates from these models, we feel let down, we feel betrayed, we feel a sense of injustice. But in reality, the fault lies with us, in the distorted image we create in our minds, in the unrealistic expectations we impose on the world. We cling to an illusion, a fantasy of how things ought to be, and when reality destroys it, instead of adapting, instead of accepting what is, we react with suffering, with resistance, with a sense of loss. We get angry because people don't act the way we want them to. We expect them to be kind, considerate and respectful, and when they are not, we feel a surge of anger. We get frustrated because the results are not what we expected. We work hard, we dedicate ourselves to a task, and when the outcome falls short of our expectations, we feel a sense of disappointment and frustration. We get sad because life does not follow the script we wrote in our minds. We have plans, we have dreams, we have a vision of how our lives should unfold, and when those plans are disrupted, when those dreams are shattered, we feel a deep sense of sadness. We believe we deserve a certain treatment, a certain success, a clear path, a life free from obstacles and challenges. But the world doesn't play by our rules. It doesn't conform to our expectations. It's unpredictable, it's chaotic, and it's often unfair. The frustration doesn't come from the event itself, but from the clash between what we wanted, what we expected, and what really happened. It's the dissonance between our idealized vision and the reality we face. Seneca said that we suffer more in our imagination than in reality. He understood that our minds have a tendency to amplify our suffering, to create scenarios that are far worse than the actual situation. Because what hurts us most is not what happens, but our interpretation of it. It's not the event itself, but the meaning we give to it, the story we tell ourselves about it, the expectations we attach to it. If we learn to accept events without resistance, if we cultivated a sense of acceptance, if we embrace the present moment without clinging to our expectations, we could avoid much of the unnecessary pain we inflict upon ourselves. We could find peace in the midst of chaos, we could find joy in the face of adversity, and we could live with a greater sense of equanimity. Imagine someone who believes that their partner will never cheat on them, because that is how it should be. They've built up an expectation, a belief, based on their own view of what is right, what is moral, what is acceptable. They have created an idealized image of their relationship, a fantasy of unwavering loyalty and devotion. But if betrayal occurs, if their partner does cheat, the anger does not arise from the act itself, but from the contrast with the idealized image they had created. It's the shattering of their illusion, the destruction of their fantasy, that causes the pain. Instead of accepting reality as it is, they fight against it in their mind. They resist the truth, and that internal conflict, that struggle between their expectations and the reality they face, becomes suffering. It's a self-inflicted wound, a pain that could have been avoided if they had not clung so tightly to their expectations. Another example is the person who expects their friends to always be there for them, for traffic to flow smoothly, or for their boss to value their efforts. They have a set of expectations about how the world should work, how people should behave, and how life should unfold. When any of this does not happen, when their friends are not available, when traffic is congested, when their boss does not appreciate their work, they feel disappointment and anger. Because they assumed the world should follow their rules, they believed that their expectations were justified. and when reality failed to meet those expectations, they felt a sense of injustice. The Stoics teach us that the key to inner peace is to eliminate unrealistic expectations. It is not about resignation, about giving up on our goals or dreams, but about understanding that the world owes us nothing. We cannot control the behavior of others. We cannot dictate the course of events. We cannot force life to conform to our expectations. We can only control our reaction to them. We can choose how we respond. We can choose our attitude, and we can choose to accept reality as it is, without resistance and without judgment. Epictetus said we should accept what happens as if we had chosen it, because resisting it only generates suffering. He encouraged us to embrace fate, to see every event, every circumstance, every challenge as an opportunity for growth and learning. If we stop expecting people to treat us in a certain way, if we accept that they can fail us, that life does not follow a predictable order, we eliminate a large part of our stress and frustration. We free ourselves from the burden of unmet expectations, and we find peace in accepting the present moment as it is. Accepting reality as it is does not mean giving up goals or desires. It means being prepared for any outcome. We can strive to achieve something. We can work towards our goals. We can pursue our dreams, but without clinging to the idea that it must happen exactly as we want, or else failure will destroy us. We must be willing to adapt, to adjust our plans, and to accept whatever outcome life presents us with. Disappointment does not come from life. It comes from our resistance to accepting its unexpected turns. A Stoic understands that everything changes, that nothing is guaranteed, and that is why they do not allow their emotions to be dictated by external factors. They cultivate a sense of inner resilience, a strength that comes from within, not from the external world. If we eliminate rigid expectations, if we let go of our need to control the uncontrollable, we stop demanding that the world adapt to our beliefs. Instead of getting frustrated when something does not go well, we ask ourselves what we can learn. Instead of feeling betrayed, we understand that people act according to their own nature, not the one we imagine for them. We recognize that everyone is on their own journey, with their own challenges, their own beliefs, and their own motivations. Peace is found in flexibility, in adaptability, and in the ability to accept whatever comes without resistance. It's about flowing with life, rather than fighting against it. Happiness does not lie in making everything fit our expectations, but in learning to flow with reality without letting it rob us of our peace of mind. It's about finding contentment in the present moment, regardless of the circumstances. Number 3. Anger is a reflection of the ego. Anger is nothing more than a reflection of the wounded ego. This is a crucial insight, a key to understanding the root cause of our anger and how to overcome it. When we feel that someone disrespects us, treats us unfairly, or does not recognize our value, we react with anger. Because our sense of identity is threatened, because our ego feels attacked, because we perceive a slight to our self-worth. We believe we deserve different treatment, that others should see us as we see ourselves, that we are entitled to recognition and respect. And when that does not happen, when others fail to validate our ego, we feel that something sacred within us has been violated. We feel a sense of injustice, a sense of outrage, a sense of being wronged. But the truth is that anger does not arise from what others do. It arises from our interpretation of their actions. It's not the event itself, but the meaning we give to it, the story we tell ourselves about it, that triggers our anger. It is our ego that demands recognition, that takes offense, that needs to defend its image. If that ego were not so inflated, if we did not take things so personally, If we were not so attached to our self-image, anger would lose its power over us. It would simply pass through us, like a cloud in the sky, without leaving a trace. When someone speaks rudely to us, our first reaction is often to think we are being attacked. We feel a need to defend ourselves, to retaliate, to prove that we are right and they are wrong. But what if that person is simply having a bad day? What if their words have nothing to do with us but with their own internal chaos? What if they are struggling with their own challenges, their own insecurities, their own frustrations? Most of the time, other people's actions are not a reflection of us, but of themselves. Their behavior is often a manifestation of their own inner state, their own struggles, their own beliefs. However, the ego makes us believe that everything revolves around us. It creates a narrative where we are the central character, the victim of every slight, the target of every insult. We tell ourselves, "He disrespected me. He made me look bad. He didn't value me." We personalize everything. We take everything to heart, and in doing so, we fuel our anger. But what would happen if we simply stopped seeing ourselves as the center of every situation? What if we understood that the behavior of others is their burden, not ours? What if we recognized that their actions are often a reflection of their own internal world, not a judgment of our worth? We could free ourselves from anger. We could detach from the need to defend our ego, and we could find peace in understanding that we are not the cause of their behavior. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that it is not what happens that disturbs us, but our opinion of it. He emphasized the power of our perception, the importance of our judgments, and the role of our beliefs in shaping our emotional responses. If someone insults us, the insult itself has no power until we give it meaning. We can choose to ignore it. We can see it as a reflection of the other person and move on without letting it affect our peace. We can choose to respond with compassion, with understanding, or with detachment. But the ego wants to fight. It wants to defend itself. It wants to prove it's right. And in that desire to protect our image, we fall into the trap of anger, losing control and acting impulsively. We say things we don't mean. We do things we regret, and we damage our relationships. But if someone's insult doesn't change who we are, if their attitude doesn't define us, why allow it to drag us into a state of chaos? Why give them the power to disrupt our peace? A clear example is when we're in traffic and someone cuts us off. The ego tells us it is disrespect, that we should react, that we cannot allow ourselves to be treated like that. We feel a surge of anger, a sense of injustice, a need to retaliate. But the other driver likely wasn't even thinking about us. They're simply caught up in their own world. Perhaps they are in a hurry, perhaps they are distracted, or perhaps they are simply not paying attention. However, our ego turns the situation into something personal. It makes it about us, and with that, anger takes over our mind. We become consumed by the need to punish the other driver, to teach them a lesson, to assert our dominance. If instead of reacting, if instead of personalizing the situation, we simply accept what happened, if we see it as an inevitable part of driving, if we choose to respond with composure and detachment, we can avoid the anger and maintain our peace. In any context, whether work, relationships, or daily routines, our reaction is not caused by events themselves, but by the story we tell ourselves about them. It's our interpretation, our judgment, our belief that triggers our emotional response. The Stoics teach us that the key to controlling anger is recognizing the role our ego plays in it. If we improve our self-esteem, if we stop needing validation from others, if we understand our worth does not depend on how we are treated, we can be immune to provocations. We can develop an inner strength, a resilience that comes from within, not from external sources. Seneca said that the best revenge is not to resemble the person who has hurt us. He emphasized the importance of maintaining our integrity, of choosing virtue over vengeance, and of responding with compassion rather than retaliation. If someone treats us badly and we respond with anger, we are letting them control us. We are giving them power over our emotions, and we are stooping to their level. But if we remain calm, if we decide not to play their game, if we choose to respond with wisdom and detachment, we show true strength. We demonstrate that we are not defined by their actions, and we refuse to let them disrupt our peace. Anger reflects an ego that has not yet learned to detach from others' opinions. It's a sign of insecurity, a need for validation, a fear of being judged. But when we understand that others do not have the power to define us, that their words and actions speak more about them than about us, we free ourselves. We break the chains of ego, and we find peace in accepting our true selves, regardless of external opinions. It is not about allowing abuse or accepting everything in silence. It's not about being a doormat or letting others walk all over us, but about learning to react intelligently and not from emotion, to respond with wisdom rather than rage, and to choose our battles wisely. Inner peace is not achieved by controlling others, but by controlling our reaction to them. When the ego is no longer the center of our existence, when we are no longer driven by the need for validation, anger loses its hold on us. We become more resilient, more compassionate, and more capable of living a virtuous life. Number 4, forgiveness frees us from anger. Anger is a heavy burden that we often carry without realizing it. We cling to resentment, we hold on to grudges, we nurse our wounds, because we believe that by doing so, we punish those who have hurt us. We think that by harboring anger, we are somehow exacting revenge, making them pay for their actions. But in reality, the only one punished is ourselves. We are the ones who suffer. We are the ones who are consumed by the negativity, and we are the ones who are prevented from moving forward. Anger consumes our peace. It locks us in a mental prison, and it prevents us from experiencing joy, happiness, and contentment. It's a self-inflicted wound, a pain that we perpetuate by clinging to resentment. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is the key that opens that cell. It's the path to freedom, the release from the shackles of anger, and the journey toward inner peace. It does not mean justifying what they did. It's not about condoning their actions, or pretending that they didn't happen, or naively forgetting, but freeing ourselves from the need to continue suffering for something that has already happened. It's about letting go of the past, releasing the pain, and choosing to move forward. Forgiveness is not a gift for the other person. It's not about letting them off the hook or giving them a free pass. It is an act of self-love, an essential step in recovering our peace of mind. It's about choosing to heal, to move on, and to reclaim our happiness. When we cling to anger, when we hold on to resentment, we relive the pain over and over again. Our mind becomes a battlefield where the past is still present, where we continue to give power to those who hurt us. We allow their actions to define our present, and we rob ourselves of the opportunity to experience joy and peace. But why carry that anger around? Why let it consume us? Why allow it to dictate our lives? Marcus Aurelius said that the best punishment for those who have hurt us is not to be like them. He understood that revenge only perpetuates the cycle of pain, and that true strength lies in choosing a different path, a path of virtue, a path of compassion. If someone betrayed, offended, or hurt us, holding a grudge only prolongs their control over us. It keeps us bound to the past. It prevents us from moving forward. and it allows them to continue to inflict pain, even though they may not even be aware of it. Forgiveness, on the other hand, gives us back our power. It releases us from the shackles of resentment, and it lets us move on without letting the past define us. It's about choosing to heal, to grow, and to create a better future for ourselves. Resentment is a trap of the ego. It makes us believe that if we forgive, we are showing weakness. We think that by holding on to anger, we are somehow asserting our strength, punishing the other person, and protecting ourselves from future harm. But the reality is the opposite. Strength is in those who have control over their emotions, who decide to let go of what hurts them instead of clinging to it. It's about choosing compassion over bitterness, understanding over judgment, and healing over resentment. Seneca taught that we should not allow anger to dictate our actions, because when we act in anger, we are not our own masters. He emphasized the importance of self-control, of choosing reason over emotion, and of responding with wisdom rather than rage. If someone hurts us and we respond with resentment, we give them power over our peace of mind. We allow them to control our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions. But if we choose to forgive, if we choose to release the pain, we regain control of our mind and well-being. We reclaim our power and we free ourselves from the burden of anger. Imagine someone betrayed by a close friend. The natural reaction is anger, disappointment, the desire for revenge. We want to make them pay. We want to inflict the same pain they caused us, and we want to ensure that they never forget what they did. But how long can that feeling be sustained without becoming a burden? How long can we carry that anger, that resentment, without it weighing us down, without it poisoning our lives? Resentment doesn't affect the traitor, it affects the person carrying it. Every time they think of the betrayal, every time they relive the pain, the anger flares up and the suffering is relived. It's a constant reminder of the hurt, a persistent source of negativity, and a barrier to healing. Conversely, if they decide to forgive, if they choose to release the anger, if they accept that what happened cannot be changed and that the past should not define their present, they find freedom. It does not mean trusting the traitor again. It's not about being naive or vulnerable, but stopping their action from continuing to cause pain. It's about choosing to heal, to move forward, and to create a better future for themselves, free from the shackles of resentment. Forgiveness is a conscious choice. It does not happen overnight. It's not a magical solution, and it is not always easy. It's a process, a journey, and it requires effort, self-compassion, and a willingness to let go. But it is the path to inner peace. It's the way to heal, to grow, and to find true happiness. Epictetus reminded us that we have no control over what others do, only over our reaction. He emphasized the importance of focusing on what we can control and releasing our attachment to what we cannot. If someone offends us, it is not the offense that harms us, but the importance we give it. It's not the event itself, but the meaning we attach to it, the story we tell ourselves about it, that triggers our emotional response. By forgiving, we stop feeding that importance. We choose to release the pain, we choose to let go of the resentment, and we choose to reclaim our peace. We understand that each person acts from their own level of consciousness, reflecting their inner world, not ours. We recognize that their actions are often a manifestation of their own struggles, their own beliefs, and their own motivations. It does not mean allowing abuse or tolerating injustice. It's not about being a doormat or letting others walk all over us, but letting go of the resentment that prevents us from living peacefully. It's about choosing compassion over bitterness, understanding over judgment, and healing over revenge. When we forgive, we do not free the other person. we free ourselves. We stop carrying an unnecessary burden. We stop wasting energy on a conflict that only exists in our mind. And we open ourselves to the possibility of joy, happiness, and contentment. True revenge is not causing harm. It's not about inflicting pain, but showing that the harm has not changed us, that we move on without being consumed by anger, and that we choose to live a virtuous life, despite the challenges we have faced. Peace is not found in waiting for others to repent. It's not about seeking their forgiveness or demanding their apologies, but in deciding that our happiness does not depend on their behavior. It's about choosing self-love, choosing healing, and choosing to reclaim our inner peace. To forgive is to release the poison of anger and embrace the freedom that comes with serenity. It's about choosing compassion over bitterness, understanding over judgment, and healing over revenge. Number 5. Practice non-reaction. When something irritates us, when we feel provoked or attacked, our first reaction is often impulsive and emotionally charged. We want to respond immediately. We want to defend ourselves. We want to prove that we are right, and we want to assert our dominance. But at that moment, our mind is not operating from reason. It's not guided by logic, but from instinct. We are driven by our emotions, and that is where we make mistakes, where we say things we later regret, where we make situations worse instead of solving them. We act impulsively, we react emotionally, and we lose sight of our values and principles. The practice of non-reaction allows us to avoid this. It gives us control over our responses. It empowers us to choose our actions, and it protects us from the emotional exhaustion impulsive reactions generate. It allows us to step back, to observe the situation with clarity, and to respond with wisdom rather than rage. When we take a moment before responding, when we resist the impulse to act immediately, we gain power over ourselves. We reclaim our agency, and we choose how we want to respond, rather than being dictated by our emotions. It is not about being indifferent or repressing our emotions. It's not about denying our feelings or pretending that we are not affected by external events, but about training ourselves not to be slaves to them. It's about developing the inner strength, the self-discipline, and the wisdom to choose our responses, rather than being dictated by our emotions. Marcus Aurelius said that the best way to defend yourself from an offense is not to resemble the person who offended you. He understood that responding with anger only perpetuates the cycle of negativity, and that true strength lies in choosing a different path, a path of virtue, a path of compassion. If someone insults you or criticizes you harshly, reacting with anger is to play their game. It's about stooping to their level, giving them power over you, and allowing them to control your emotions. But if you remain calm, if you choose not to respond at that moment, if you choose to observe the situation with clarity and detachment, you show that you are in control. You demonstrate that your peace does not depend on others' attitudes, that you are not defined by their actions, and that you refuse to let them disrupt your inner tranquility. In everyday life, there are countless opportunities to practice non-reaction. A hurtful comment from a co-worker, an aggressive driver in traffic, a family member looking for an argument. In each of these moments, the decision is in your hands. You can react immediately and feed the conflict. You can engage in a battle of egos, or you can choose to pause, observe the situation from a distance, and respond intelligently. You can choose to respond with composure, with understanding, or with detachment. You can choose to be the master of your own mind, rather than the slave of your emotions. Epictetus taught that it is not what happens that affects us, but the way we interpret it. He emphasized the importance of our perceptions, our judgments, and our beliefs in shaping our emotional responses. If someone criticizes you in a meeting and you take it as a personal attack, you get angry and react defensively. You feel a need to defend yourself, to prove your worth, and to assert your dominance. But if you pause, breathe, and analyze whether it is worth responding at all, if you choose to see the criticism as constructive feedback, or if you understand that it may be a reflection of the other person's insecurities, you can act calmly and professionally, without emotion controlling your behavior. You can choose to respond with wisdom, with clarity, and with detachment. You can choose to maintain your composure, regardless of the other person's behavior. Not reacting is a sign of strength. Most people act on impulse, enslaved by their emotions. When someone irritates them, they react without thinking, allowing anger to take control. They become victims of their own emotions, and they lose sight of reason and logic. But true power lies in those who resist that first reaction, who know they don't need to prove anything, who choose when and how to act. It's about cultivating self-control, developing inner strength, and choosing our responses rather than being dictated by our emotions. Seneca reminded us that time is a great filter for emotions. He understood that our initial reactions are often exaggerated, and that with time, our perspective can shift and our emotions can subside. What today seems like an unforgivable offense will lose importance in a few days. What irritates us deeply now will seem insignificant in a few hours. Therefore, not reacting immediately allows us to gain perspective and see the situation clearly before deciding what to do. It gives us time to reflect, to analyze, and to choose our response wisely. It allows us to avoid impulsive actions, regrettable words, and unnecessary conflict. Practicing non-reaction does not mean passively accepting everything or letting others walk all over us. It's not about being a doormat or allowing injustice. It means acting from reason, not emotion. It's about choosing our battles wisely, responding with wisdom rather than rage, and maintaining our composure, regardless of the circumstances. If something really deserves a response, if there is a genuine need to address the situation, the best response is the one given when our mind is calm. Instead of responding to fire with more fire, we respond with intelligence and equanimity. Not because we are weak, but because our peace is our priority. The practice of non-reaction is a skill that is cultivated over time. It requires patience, self-discipline, and a willingness to observe our own emotions without judgment. It's about recognizing the first signs of anger, the subtle shift in our thoughts and feelings, and the impulse to react immediately. It's about learning to pause, to breathe, and to create a space between the stimulus and our response. It's about choosing to be the observer of our own emotions rather than being controlled by them. When we master this skill, we become more resilient, more compassionate, and more capable of living a virtuous life. We find peace in the midst of chaos. We find strength in the face of adversity, and we find freedom in the ability to choose our responses. Number 6. Focus on what you can control. The Stoics understood a fundamental truth about life, that we have limited control over external events. We cannot control the weather, the behavior of others, or the course of history. We cannot prevent misfortune, we cannot guarantee success, and we cannot avoid the inevitable changes that life brings. But what we can control is our response to these events. We can choose our attitude, our perspective, and our actions. We can choose how we interpret the world, how we react to challenges, and how we live our lives. This is the essence of Stoicism, focusing on what is within our power and accepting what is not. When we understand this distinction, when we learn to differentiate between what we can control and what we cannot, We free ourselves from a great deal of unnecessary suffering. We stop wasting energy on things that are beyond our influence, and we focus on cultivating the virtues that lead to a good and fulfilling life. Epictetus taught that some things are in our control, while others are not. He emphasized the importance of understanding this distinction and focusing our efforts on what we can influence. He encouraged us to accept what is beyond our control with equanimity and to strive for virtue in all our actions. If we get angry because someone criticizes us, we are wasting energy on something we cannot change. We cannot control their opinion, we cannot force them to see us differently, and we cannot prevent them from expressing their views. But we can control how we react. We can choose to ignore their criticism. We can see it as an opportunity for growth, or we can understand that it is a reflection of their own insecurities. We can choose to respond with composure, with understanding, or with detachment. We can choose to maintain our peace of mind, regardless of their behavior. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that we should not be disturbed by what happens, but by our opinion of what happens. He understood that our perception of events plays a crucial role in shaping our emotional responses. If we get frustrated because our plans are disrupted, we are wasting energy on something we cannot change. We cannot control the unexpected events that life throws our way. We cannot guarantee that everything will go according to plan, and we cannot prevent misfortune. But we can control how we react. We can choose to adapt to the new circumstances. We can see the disruption as an opportunity for growth, or we can understand that it is simply a part of life. We can choose to maintain our composure, regardless of the challenges we face. Seneca said that we should live as if we were already living our second life, and as if we had acted wrongly in the first. He encouraged us to approach life with a sense of urgency, to make the most of every moment, and to focus on what truly matters. If we get angry because we are stuck in traffic, we are wasting energy on something we cannot change. We cannot control the traffic, we cannot make the cars move faster, and we cannot prevent delays. But we can control how we react. We can choose to use the time to listen to a podcast, to reflect on our day, or to simply enjoy the moment. We can choose to maintain our peace of mind, regardless of the traffic. The practice of focusing on what we can control is not about resignation or passivity. It's not about giving up on our goals or dreams, but about understanding that we can only control our own actions, our own thoughts, and our own attitudes. It's about accepting the things we cannot change and focusing our efforts on the things we can. It's about cultivating the virtues that lead to a good and fulfilling life, such as wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. It's about living in accordance with nature, accepting the present moment, and finding peace in the midst of chaos. When we focus on what we can control, we become more resilient, more adaptable, and more capable of navigating the challenges of life. We stop wasting energy on things that are beyond our influence, and we focus on cultivating the inner strength that allows us to thrive, regardless of the circumstances. We find peace in accepting the present moment. We find strength in our ability to choose our responses, and we find freedom in the understanding that we are the masters of our own minds. These 6 Stoic lessons, when applied with discipline and consistency, will transform your life. They will empower you to control your mind, to master your emotions, and to live with greater peace and tranquility. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Start today. Start now. Choose to be a Stoic. Choose to live a virtuous life. Choose to find your inner peace.